Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight on the virtual Red Bench. I am Abby, the Executive Director of the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum. Our virtual Red Bench events are complimentary, but it's so important to the future of the museum that you support our events when you can. If you haven't yet done so, please consider making a donation tonight. Each donation in increments of $10 receives a raffle entry for a pair of Darn Tough snow socks, and I'll draw 2 winners tomorrow. We also have a Red Bench Seasons Pass available that covers your admission to all Red Bench events, both in person and virtual, and automatically gains you your raffle entries. Season Pass information can be found on our website. I'll also include a link in the chat once I hand this over to Peter and Ryan. A massive thank you to our Red Bench Series sponsors: silver sponsor Scholler Textile, bronze sponsor Sisler Builders, and our media sponsor Vermont Ski and Ride. They make this possible, and we're so grateful. We're also very fortunate to have Ryan Cochran-Siegle joining us tonight. Ryan is a member of the legendary Cochran family, a family with deep roots in Vermont skiing and a commitment to making sure all kids have access to affordable skiing and snowboarding. Ryan is a World Cup and Olympic alpine ski racer, and you may remember Vermont's collective celebration when he won silver in Super G just last year at the Beijing Winter Olympics. Speaking with Ryan tonight is Peter Graves. Peter is a longtime museum board member with a 40-year career in the ski industry as a coach and TV and stadium announcer. He has covered 13 Olympic Games and was named to the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame in 2021. As always, you will have an opportunity to ask your questions at the end, so please type those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We're so lucky to have Ryan and Peter with us tonight. Peter, I'll hand this over to you to give this audience what they've tuned in for.
All right, Abby, thank you so very much. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Well, if you're from around these parts, you might know him by RCS. His moniker, it is pretty well known around the world. Ryan Cochran-Siegle with us tonight. He's in South Burlington tonight, but Starksboro is his home, was born in Burlington. And we have so many questions to ask you, Ryan. Your legacy to an extraordinary ski family with not only extraordinary results, but amazing, wonderful, humble people. So thank you, first of all, for joining us. It's a delight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm kind of curious, since at the essence, everything starts with family. Your mom, 1972 Olympic gold medalist in slalom, Barbara, your aunts and uncles, all elite skiers on the U.S. team. You're known as the Skiing Cochrans. You have your own ski area, the Cochrans ski area, which is really quite extraordinary. Tell me a little bit about what it was growing up in this Cochran milieu.
Yeah, that's a good first question. I think, my experience growing up with the family that I had and the place that I had, I don't think I really thought we were any different than any other people or any other family, And I mean, I feel like we really aren't. We were just, my grandfather built a ski area, and we were fortunate because of that. But really just growing up, it was, I think we all enjoyed playing sports, all enjoyed being really active, being outside, and, growing up in kind of the heart of Vermont, taking advantage of everything that's around us. And because of all that, I think it was easy to integrate into skiing and find a love for skiing, spending time at the ski area. And then also, I mean, going to other ski areas, like going to Bolin or Mad River or Stowe, Smugs, all these places, and really just exploring. And that was, I think, had a huge impact on my life growing up, and that, passion that I felt when I'd go out and ski. It was obviously I was learning the sport. But at the same time, I think I was just learning to be a kid and have fun and, adventure a little. And I think, as you age and you focus in on what you're trying to be when you grow up. And I think I was in a good place. I will say that our family had a really good, I would say, trajectory, or at least, path to follow by the time I was coming up through the ranks. And, that gave confidence, that to believe in myself, to trust that I can be one of the best, in Vermont, one of the best in the country, one of the best in the world when the time came. And, just taking it step by step, I think allowed me to get to where I am today. For sure, it's, I think holding that dream of being one of the best skiers in the world, that's like, if you can believe that with your whole heart when you're a young kid, I think that allows you to then, go through the hard work and go through the motions and put in, your energy. And I think one day that's what comes out. So, yeah, I definitely I try to appreciate every day, because I know, it's a lot of fun and a privilege to be a ski racer at age 31.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So your mom with the gold, Marilyn also with great accomplishments in her career, Bobby, Lindy, they were all around the same age. Did you, and I realize that there's an age difference between you and them too, but were they competitive amongst each other?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say I've heard a lot of stories growing up, and I have to say, I think my Aunt Marilyn was always the most competitive. And I mean, that's a whole other story to get into, but I think that's like what allows you to excel in athletics is having that, innate drive that you want to be more a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today, and less maybe so about like beating your siblings. I think that's where that, like, the more you can focus on just like growing yourself and being a better athlete, I think the healthier it is. And but I mean, it's hard too. You always have that other competitor that you feel like you want to be a little bit better than, and you build that rivalry up in your head. And I mean, that also is key to pushing you. And I think for my mom and her three siblings, they were always, and not just in skiing, but I think, in soccer and baseball, all these different avenues, trying to, see how far they could push each other and just progress as they got older.
I'm sure you know where your mom's Olympic gold medal is. And but now in the household, if you will, after Beijing, you have an Olympic silver in Super G.
Mhm.
What is it like to have that sort of dichotomy, and where do you keep your Olympic silver medal?
It's funny. I like forget about it a lot, which I think is a good thing in a way, trying, always just living in the present. But it was definitely, the first, when I got back from the Olympics, especially that first week, there were a lot of celebrations. So I had it with me all the time. And now I honestly, it's in my bedroom closet, just on a shelf. And I like rarely take it down, only once in a while. If I have like a friend come over or something, that'll show them. But yeah, it's obviously I'm going to keep track of it, and I'll bring it whenever someone wants to see it. It is, I think, the cool thing, obviously growing up with my mom and her medal, getting to hold it when I was a little kid. I don't think I appreciated really what the significance it was, because it was always just there. And I think I appreciate obviously her medal a lot more, but it's just cool to kind of be able to compare the two, and have the two in our family.
One thing I know for sure is that not only is skiing very deep in your DNA and roots, but so is Vermont as well. What does it mean to you to come from Vermont?
I think, first of all, our nation's very diverse, and there's a lot of different people here. And, I grew up here. I definitely hold Vermont close to my heart, and I want to, grow old here. I love it here. And, so much about this place is the people that are here. And I think we always embody such a strong, set of characteristics that like help you just excel in life in general. I mean, hardworking, I think being humble, caring for one another, like whether or not you're meeting a stranger or your friend, like treating them with kindness and respect. And I think those values that, you just you learn based on the people that you're surrounded by as you grow up. I think allow me to, not that I know I'm not a perfect person, but I think the closer I can hold and follow that behavior that I view as like what a true hardworking Vermonter is, I think the better off I'll be, just going forward. So yeah, I mean, I think the people here are genuine and, just really, really good, wholesome people. And the more that I can feel like I'm a part of that, I feel like the better, person I feel I am. And I think it's always something really powerful to strive for.
And here we are on the cusp of Killington World Cup, looking at, I believe, the 8th World Cup that we've had there. It's worked unbelievably well. It's been so successful. 18 to 20,000 people there every day. It really shows that Vermont, but New England and New York and these surrounding states, they're just wild for ski racing. And of course, with the storyline with Michaela doing so very well, of course they come to watch her too. It's pretty gratifying, I think, to see what this Killington World Cup has done for the state.
Absolutely, yeah. I've never been in person, which I feel like is, I'll have to make it someday, and it just never lines up with our men's speed schedule. But I think even like just friends that I have who race there who aren't American, I think they're always like, oh yeah, Killington. So they put on such an incredible job. The fans are so, passionate. And I think it just, speaks to, yeah, the New England and the Vermont, and I think our historical presence in the sport of skiing, especially in the U.S., and that pride that we all feel in this kind of like this, I mean, relatively small community. We are all we recognize the past, present, and future, and appreciate, I think, how having such a huge event that Killington is in this area is, I mean, it leaves a lasting impression for so many people, whether they're young and up and coming, or maybe someone starting out with a family and want to get their family or their kids into skiing. I think it has a lasting effect. And I'm sure that Michaela has also had a huge impact with that. I mean, she's, one of the greatest ski racers of all time, obviously has the winning record now. Mm-hmm. Really every accomplishment you could ever strive for, she's accomplished. And, her connection too with Berkmount Academy and the presence, I think her family used to live in Lyme, New Hampshire too. So, that in a sense is a type of home for her, and for her to be able to come here and perform, the past, I think 8 seasons, like you said, has been, it's such a great event, and such a great, just aspect for our sport.
Now, you'll miss Killington this year because tomorrow you're on a plane for Denver. You're going to Copper Mountain for speed training. And then on the heels of that will be the annual Beaver Creek event in Colorado. So let's get down and talk a little bit more about your skiing. You say you specialize in giant slalom and Super G. Your Olympic medal in Super G. What about downhill with you? Is that not at the forefront as well?
I've actually, I mean, the past few years, I think my career has kind of transitioned to more speed based. I mean, I didn't race Solden this year just because my whole prep period was based around, obviously Super G, but also trying to get my downhill up to speed too. And I've had some success in the years past. And for me, it's, I think it's about volume and training, and, what obviously putting energy where you feel like you can get the greatest payout in terms of, skiing fast. And for me, downhill, is kind of that ultimate event where I think there's a lot of characteristics that, I think suit my style and my ability. I think, I've tried to have a really strong technical foundation, but with speed, it is, there's a little bit more touch, especially when it comes to downhill and gliding. And trying to integrate those two concepts as best as possible. It's been tough though too. I think in years past I was able to kind of balance all three events, and I feel like as I've kind of been moving through my career, it's hard to keep up with GS. I think where the ability is with that group of skiers is really competitive, and you can't just hop into a World Cup GS and expect to perform well. So I would like to keep skiing all three events if I can, but it's also where I'm at. I know that I need to really focus in on Super G and downhill before I feel confident to get back into GS. So.
And you go back to 2012, you had 2 gold medals in World Junior Championships, one of them coming in downhill and the other in combined. And you've had some other results in Italy that I want to talk about as we go forward. You made your World Cup debut November 26th of 2011. You were 19 years of age. What do you remember about that first getting into the gate at the big show?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember there was a time trial leading up to it because it was a downhill in Lake Louise. And so the last training run, I think the time trial was between Tommy Ford, Chris Frank, and I. And I was planning to race the Super G anyway. And I think, I skied, I don't think it was all that impressive, but skied fast enough to get the spot. So I think it was a surreal moment, skiing, like knowing that, you're on TV and there are all these people watching you. And I don't think my run was all that impressive. The one thing that I do remember is in Claire's corner, I don't know if I was just tired or maybe just thinking a little forward ahead, but I'm pretty sure I booted out. And so I actually ended up crashing. I just like slid on the side. So I DNF'd the first race that I did. I was totally fine, but it was, kind of an embarrassing moment to get started on the World Cup.
11 years on the World Cup seems like a long time, but it does beg the question to me, do you feel like you're still learning all the time, Ryan?
Absolutely. Yeah. I try to learn something, with regards to skiing, at least a new perspective every day. I think I've been in the sport long enough that, the broad understanding is pretty solid, but it's always the little things and figuring out how to become, I think the best in the world. You really have to have so many characteristics and aspects falling into place and kind of functioning together. So that's where the learning aspect comes, because I'll have a focus or, drive in one specific aspect of my technique and then be so locked into this, and then something kind of falls out. So then you're always, shifting and changing your mindset one day to the next and finding, really what those cues are that do key you in and really progress you forward and introduce better skiing. And that seems to always be changing. So it is, I think it's just, it's the reason why artists can spend an entire lifetime perfecting their craft. Obviously, as a ski racer, we're limited by our body and, just the lifestyle as to why we're not still ski racing when we're 80. But it is, in this moment, trying to really just be the best skier that I can be. It's a constant focus.
Can you give us, we can't cover every meter of it, but let's say we're talking about the Beaver Creek downhill. Bernard Russi designed the course. It's one of the toughest courses anywhere in the world. What makes it so tough?
I think the terrain is pretty intimidating. And there's a lot of good varying aspects. I think what honestly makes it so tough in a way is that, generally speaking, every year the course crew does such an incredible job prepping the hill. The snow's just this awesome, really hard, firm, packed snow, but there's a little bit of kind of a Colorado aspect of it where there's nice grip. And because the conditions hold up so well throughout the race, it becomes so much about, an equal playing field. And that's when the best skiers know how to excel. And so it's I think most years the difference between first and, sixth or seventh place is usually within a second, and just incredibly competitive. And it takes, the best skiing, but also from the start to the finish, and, putting it all together. Obviously, there's aspects where the pitch is incredibly steep. There's terrain in play. There's big jumps. There's some gliding up top, and also kind of before Golden Eagle. And, it's how you flow in the course that also you need to have a wide range of skill sets in order to perform well there.
And I suppose, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I suppose there's kind of a scary element or a little bit of fear in going down these classic downhills like Kitzbühel and Beaver Creek and Val Gardena, etc.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it's very rare that I'm in the start and there's not a little bit of, nervousness or intimidation, both by the track itself, and I think the unknown of, what might take place. It's, even Gardena, which I mean is kind of there's a lot of terrain in play, which makes it challenging, but it is a flatter course than compared to a place like Kitzbühel or Beaver Creek. But there's still places where you really have to be present and be conscious of that moment you're in, because of how quickly things can, kind of change or go away from what you might have had planned. So, I mean, downhill is definitely, it's a high speed race, and with that high velocity just comes high consequences, so long as, when you're not present. So,
You
but
recall,
at the same time,
for example, Ryan, what some of your speed checks have been like down Beaver Creek? Can you give the folks at home an example of how fast you might be going?
I don't know the exact speeds. I feel like it's got to be through Pump House, has to be close to like 80 miles an hour.
Mhm.
I'm not totally sure. And the fastest speed on the tour is in Wengen, where we usually, 85, 90. There's one year where we were getting up to 100 miles per hour. And sometimes it's not the speed. I mean, obviously that speed is fast, and the wind's blowing really hard, and like the sounds, your skis are rattling and you feel like you're just vibrating over the surface. But the scarier parts are sometimes like flying over a blind jump, or, when you don't have an immediate sense of your full surroundings. That's kind of when it becomes, I think, most intimidating.
Gonna go oh, we have a Rusty Dweez says dies off season logging as training. Yeah. All right. Well, John Caldwell used to talk about maple syrup carrying buckets around. What about this kind of question? Certainly good physical strength training, right?
Oh yeah, logging with Rusty. Yeah.
I'm sure you've done this, right?
Yeah. No, I enjoy. Rusty will, we'll talk once in a while, and I'll go up to visit him in Stowe, and yeah, we've been working away, helping with his beautiful estate up there. But it's nice to just be out in the woods and, firing up the chainsaw. Yeah, I think like, I follow a good strength and physical program that the ski team will provide. But I think outside of that too, just being active and appreciating the outdoors where we're at I feel like it refills the soul a little bit.
Yeah, and your family, all of you have had another sport that you played in. I know baseball was one that family enjoyed, but there are others, and I think they all kind of work in synchronicity. I mean, like gymnastics is another perfect example of something that I think can pay off in spades for alpine ski racing.
Yeah, completely. I think, sports in general, there's some type of coordination that you're learning with your body. So yeah, growing up for me, I played soccer in the fall, skied in the winter, and then played baseball in the spring, and then a lot of different like non-formal sports outside of that. But playing soccer in the fall was always so great. Getting your aerobic capacity up and that getting in shape before ski season, and then I think also baseball, a little bit slower pace, but hand-eye coordination, that type of skill was also, I think valuable in its own sense. I mean, and just having fun in that type of environment.
Yeah, we've talked about the speed and the steepness and all of that, and sometimes, sadly, there are injuries, and you've had to confront them in your career. In fact, as I recall, you had to take off the entire 2015 season due to injury. Tell me a little bit about what happened and what was the process there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it first started. I was racing in World Champs in Schladming in 2013, and in the combined and in the downhill run, just skied over a little bit of terrain, kind of was off balance, and when I came down, my ski just kind of cut into the snow and then directed away from my body, and in that process, tore my ACL and lateral meniscus. And it was such a quick event. It was pretty surreal. So I came back, rehabbed that, and then the following season, I mean, almost a year to the day, I was racing in a NORAM GS at Stowe, and kind of a similar situation where my leg was extended out and just went through a rut. And I think due to the previous meniscus injury that led to other damage, tore my medial meniscus, tore the femoral cartilage in my knee, and then my lateral meniscus was completely gone. And it was one of those things where I, didn't get an MRI, and I was able to kind of like walking and skiing for the most part was okay. So I finished out the season thinking that it wasn't anything severe. And then when I finally got an MRI, they were like, hey, you have to, take time off. We'll figure it out. And through that whole process, I ended up having medial meniscus repair and then lateral meniscus transplant and cartilage transplant in all of my left knee, which took, I was off snow, I think, for 17 and a half months from March of 2014 until September of 2015. And that was, up until my injury, I think my trajectory and I was skiing World Cup, scoring a few World Cup points in Super G and downhill. And, felt like I was starting to come on the scene pretty strong. And, it definitely hit with the injury and what that meant. But at the same time, it gave me time to kind of reflect. And obviously I was still building toward rehabbing and doing all these things, but I was also kind of able to separate myself from the sport. I was going to school out in Salt Lake City, working on a college degree, and, day by day, little by little, I was able to come back. So I think I learned a lot through that entire process. First and foremost, I think the work that you put in and, by being out on the slopes and doing what we love, that is a huge privilege. And then, I also learned just like the responsibility and, the maturity to go and just be accountable for the work you're putting in and, how to be as professional as possible. I think that's one thing that I took out of it. And it's interesting, like looking back, obviously an injury, can be really negative, but in a way there are definitely positives that I still try to take away from that. And yeah, I hope, doing my best to stay healthy and, stay, motivated these, races and seasons and, coming up. So yeah, it's the unfortunate side of, every sport, but the more that you can just, I think, appreciate just the, presence that you have now and, just stay, in this moment is key.
Yeah. Well said. Some people have great success on certain courses, and it looks like Italy has treated you pretty well, both Bormio You had a second in downhill there. You won a Super G in Bormio, I guess, and a second in Val Gardena in the 2021 season. What do you attribute that to? Just great skiing, everything coming together, being healthy?
I think everything for sure coming together. I was definitely, for that like 3 week stretch, I found a really strong mindset too. I had some confidence that I was building upon from races prior. And, when I think Gardena was more telling than Bormio in a way, because I was just there like trying to learn the track. It was my first time actually racing the downhill. And that day I was just like, okay, just like do your best, trying to get a feel for the hill. Like, it's more of a gliding track. I wouldn't put too much, emphasis on how you necessarily perform today. Just go out there and try to find flow. And so I just, I skied with, I think, a lot of like love and joy with what I was feeling. And when I got to the bottom, I was, second behind Alex Kilden. It was like, it was not expected whatsoever. And that's always, and if you can be in a start house and not have any expectations, I think you always perform best. And then, 2 weeks later when we got to Bormio, prior to that season, well, first off, I would say I've always enjoyed skiing the track. It's very high speed, very big turns. There's some intimidating factors, but it's just about like appreciating it for what it is. And so I've had really strong training runs there before. And so this year, it was also the Super G. So like, because I had done well in the downhill prior, I was kind of like, my mindset was on the downhill, and I had 2 really strong training runs before the Super G. And I was just racing the Super G. I was like, okay, like do your best, I think best case scenario, 4th place, because then you don't have to worry about like awards and all that. And you can just focus on the downhill. And so I did my run, just like totally, in the zone, not thinking about like results or anything like that, just trying to, just ski. Got to the bottom, and I was quite a ways ahead than second place at the time. And it was, again, not having those expectations of like, oh, I could win today or any of that. Definitely kind of like helped with being able to just channel an incredible flow state. So I would say also since then, it's tough in a way to go to those tracks. I mean, obviously I think there's confidence to take away knowing that I can be fast there, but when you don't meet those expectations, it like, even though you can ski totally, respectable, and I would say still competitively, it's so, it can be disappointing for no good reason. And that's just like, it's difficult to kind of be like, okay, you're doing the best you can, and that's what you have to accept. You want more, and the want is always like, that's what you need to learn how to control.
All right, we continue our conversation with Ryan Cochran-Siegle. Let's go to a couple more questions here. We have a lot of maple syrup fans out there, and we'll talk about that. But what's your preferred maple syrup grade?
I feel like as light as it can get. So golden delicate for me. I know it's funny because my mom, she always likes the darker you can go, I think, because I don't know, more maple flavor, I guess, but it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. And let's talk about that in just a second here. Here's another, how do World Cup skiers handle regular pain management?
I think it depends, with, just injury and a lot of chronic type stuff that we have to deal with. There are different, methods. I try to do as much away from, ibuprofen or anything, like any actual like pain pills. I know some athletes use Celebrex, or there's another Voltaren's another kind of anti-inflammatory type medication. And I just try, I mean, with my knee, there's still kind of like some effects, it still swells. There's some discomfort at times. And, it's just about following a really strong daily routine between, I try to ice my knee when I get off the hill. We have these compression legs that I put on for 30 minutes after I ski. And then a lot of, I mean, I'm fortunate where we travel with a physical therapist everywhere we go. So if my knee feels like it's bothering me, I'm able to, get treatment with them and kind of come up with a prescription for dealing with that and making sure that I'm able to get back by the next day. So it's just a lot of, I think I try to go about it as, all the little things, making sure those are in place. And then if it's, necessary, race day, by the time you got to race in 30 minutes, then I might take an ibuprofen or something like that just to make sure that there's no pain present. But I would also say, sometimes a little bit of pain is good because it kind of like, it's just your body telling you some information and you just have to listen to that.
Here's a good one from Paul Foley. How has your mom motivated and guided you in your career?
Yeah, she's, been a huge presence and I think reason why I've been able to excel as far as I have. I think, for her and growing up with her as my mom, instilled a lot of really strong mental, thought processes that kind of kept me on a really strong trajectory. I think like just positive thinking. I remember, she would always have this, just the how your subconscious processes things. So when you use the negative, it, takes that out. So then whatever you're saying, it'll be like, I'm not going to crash at that gate. All your subconscious hears is I'm going to crash at that gate. So I think always being able to frame, that positive, being like, okay, I'm going to stand really strong on my outside ski on this gate, and trying to go through things that way. And just, learning kind of what she learned through her career. And I think that really instilled a lot. But I also think, I'm sure a lot of people assume that because she, raced on the World Cup, an Olympic champion, has all this knowledge with ski racing, that she would have coached me my entire, upbringing. And that just wasn't the case. I think there was a lot of separation in a way where she was just that supportive parent, taking me to the ski hill or taking me to the races, but she wasn't, pushing me to be her. She was just letting me kind of discover my own self. And I think that's really powerful too, taking a step back. And I know I'm not a parent myself, so I can only imagine how difficult it is. But I think just like letting, your child learn to be who they are. And obviously we all want, the best for them, but sometimes it's not necessarily like being a World Cup skier. Sometimes it's, finding another passion and just letting them kind of choose their own path too is key.
All right. Thanks for that. The distinguished ski writer Peggy Shin has a question. Hey, Ryan, how has winning an Olympic medal changed your life on the hill, off the hill, your mindset?
I think this past season, in a way, I think allowed me to build up my expectations too high, and that was kind of counterproductive. And I think a little bit, it had an impact of how I went out and performed. And I've since tried to kind of realize that, and obviously I appreciate that moment in my career and that performance, but trying to become, really focus in on what day in and day out allows me to perform my best. So I would say, yeah, it's given me perspective. Obviously, there's been a lot of, added, I think, notoriety or what have you for just endorsements and that type of recognition. I think it means a lot to a lot of people. So it's also a way to, an easy way to connect to someone. If I meet someone on the street and they're like, oh, who are you? And, eventually it kind of, I'm able to be like, oh yeah, I was, raced there, won a silver. That I think people can kind of have, I don't know, find joy in that interaction. So, but all of that being said, at the end of the day, I think trying, to still be the exact same person I was prior to the medal, finding humility every day and just, focusing on being the best person I can be, whether or not I'm an Olympic medalist or I'm just, small time boy from Vermont. It's just be true to yourself.
Yeah, how beautifully said. Alex Hamilton writes, and this is a really common kind of question in the sporting world internationally. With all the travel, how do you manage your diet?
That's a great question. Um, I've been trying to do a little bit more this year, more on the supplement side than diet. It's definitely a challenge. When we're over in Europe, especially, we're pretty much just living hotel to hotel, and we're kind of at the will of what they're preparing for us. I think for me, it's controlling the variables that you can control. I would say, it's not realistic that I can have a chef travel with me and all the food is prepared like super, healthy. And I do think that you can still attain everything you need with what you're given. And if I feel that I've, maybe not getting as many vegetables or those types of things, then I'll try to seek that out. But also just through supplementation, simple things, omega-3, vitamin D, and I mean, staying hydrated too, very key. I feel like if you focus so much in on, just the food you're eating and you're not getting good sleep, like it's a total wash. So just trying to, do the best that we can. There are other times too when, like when we go to Copper tomorrow, we have a chef that cooks for all U.S. athletes in Copper. So then it's a lot easier to focus in on that and making sure we're getting everything we need.
Mhm. Okay. That's a good question. You went 1 year to high school at Mount Abraham Union High School, and then you segued over and you went to Mount Mansfield Academy. Tell me about those transitional years and what you learned.
Yeah. So the reason why I was at Mount Abraham, through the winter, my freshman year was just I wasn't racing FIS yet, so it didn't really quite make sense to, spend so much more money at the academy if I didn't need to. And so I was actually able to balance, racing for Mount Abe in the Vermont high school circuit, and then also still racing for USSA and up that ranking system. And then the years prior, once I started racing for FIS, really just it wasn't realistic to be at my public school during the winter because of all the school that I'd have to miss on top of training. And I think we had to make it work. And so I was actually fortunate where back then I was able to go to Mount Abe during the fall and spring, and then the academy, the way it was set up was it was tutored. So my classes were just kind of facilitated actually like through my mom. She would send the curriculum to my tutors at Mount Mansfield, and then they would teach me, the material that I needed to learn. And it was a perfect system then because we were able to train in the morning, school in the afternoon, and then when we traveled to our tutors and staff would be able to give us everything we needed to stay up with our school. I think it's a lot of academies have kind of transitioned to more full-time students year round, and it's a little bit different than what I went through, but there are definitely positives and negatives with that system as well. But it was just about if I wanted to continue excelling as a ski racer and stay competitive, just in order to do that, really there had to be a change with the way that my schooling was set up, and Mount Mansfield Academy was the perfect solution to that.
Tell me what your goals are for this season. Obviously, to perform to your absolute maximum, but can you talk a little more about that? What you're hoping for?
Yeah. I'm trying. I think I had set some goals that were pretty lofty after 2 seasons prior and going into the last season, and I think after experiencing a bit of a letdown, I've tried to reevaluate really what it is. And honestly, like to me, a successful ski season would be at the end of the year if I feel like I went into every start with a really clear focused mindset and felt like I found the flow I was looking for and the joy that I was looking for because I also feel that in those moments when I feel those to their most, purest form, that is when I'm skiing my best. And obviously, like, it's in a way results-based sport, but I'm kind of in the mindset right now that in order to get the results that we would all, desire, it's really more about just that mental, I think, situation you put yourself in. I think the more that I like, put numbers or like have that fixed, like I want this result at this venue or this result at this venue, it's just really hard because it's just not realistic to have that. Some days are going to be good, some days are going to be challenging, and you have to really, have a good even approach through it all. And it's just about really, doing your best, and obviously doing your best in the race, but really what matters most is the work you're putting in and training and making sure you're really committed and just growing how you need to be competitive.
You've spoken about mindfulness a little bit. It calls the question to me. Do you do much meditation at all? Do you have some time that you call your own, that you can just go through this in a real nice flow state?
I've meditated a little, not consistently day to day. It's more if I feel like my mind's racing a lot, I'll try to kind of, come back to center and just be, figure out what is causing me to be, anxious or I don't know, all of the negative type emotions.
Sure.
I think the more present you can be, I think that's just a pure form of finding happiness and joy, which is really what we're all striving for.
Yep. All right. We have a couple more questions here. From Rusty again. What do you get in the go mindset at the starting gate? What goes through your mind? I think back to Bodie, and there was one particular guy that was up there at the start house all the time.
Yeah,
and you
baby
remember,
Huey. Yeah,
baby Huey. Is there something like that similar for you?
I definitely try to follow, my routine. And I don't know that I'm quite the personality to get overly amped up to feel like I need to perform. I'm more of just like trying to find that inner calmness and confidence and like peace to be in the start gate and be totally focused on what I want to do when I click out. It's just about, getting the body warmed up, making sure I'm, well hydrated and fueled properly. And then just that routine of, listening to the course report, getting stripped, clicking to my skis, one last fist bump from Heinz, my serviceman, and then just like clearing the mind and, trusting that it's more about the reaction and making correct reactions as you go down than it is about, sticking to a plan. So that whole, it's probably like 20-25 minutes from when I get to the start and when I'm clicking out, but it's about that build up and energy and excitement and staying a little bit even keeled through it all too, to get out and be able to ski, to the best of my ability.
How much free skiing are you able to do? Comes from Christopher Williams. Is it important to you?
Definitely. Yeah. I think, what you feel in a training course is always limited to what you experience when you're free skiing. It's just like, in terms of thought, there's a lot of things going around and, you kind of have your cue, but after 15 or 20 seconds, you lose sight of that and then you're just reacting in the course. Whereas for me, free skiing, I feel like you can make a good turn and then you feel that the turn's not quite off, but you're always able to stay on that one cue. This past week when we were in Vermont, the conditions it was pretty snowy. Free skiing was pretty soft. And I was still felt like I was able to, go take 3 or 4 runs and feel the feeling I wanted to feel, even though it's going to be totally different from the venue that we were at in the track. I think just knowing that sensation of what I was looking for, I was able to find free skiing. And I feel like that happens a lot and puts me in a place that I'm able to then click out of the start in a World Cup and kind of feel that same connection. So I know, and obviously that's like free skiing groomers, but I will also, anytime we're on skis and not necessarily in a racing type situation, it's still beneficial. Like skiing powder, you're, obviously having fun and freeing that type of, you know, construction or whatever, but it's more about, just finding flow with skiing, whether it's powder, whether it's corduroy, whether it's, moguls or in a race course. It's, it's all applicable and all gives you information back of what it is to ski.
All right. F. Todd Renz writes, what do you do to stay mentally prepared and up for race day?
For me, the process of, being mentally in it, being, amped up is the preparation that goes in, and a lot, that goes into especially World Cup downhill is training runs and knowing what the course is, whether it's the surface or the terrain or, how big the jumps are flying, having a lot of just, mental visualization to prepare. That's kind of what I try to do, just so that I feel like when I'm in the start gate, I'm, whatever gets thrown my way, I feel like I'll be able to make the right reactions and be able to adjust as I make my way down.
Okay, here's one from Peggy Shin. How much longer do you think you'll be ski racing at this level through 2026? And how's the next generations of Cochrans looking?
That's a good question. I think it's, since 2022, it's been every season I've tried to like make sure that, I'm totally motivated and, working hard and putting in the work that you need in order to ski at an elite level. And I think, in my head, I would love to be, competing through 2026 and give myself a chance to try to be on that Olympic team. I think knowing the history that I've had at Bormio, I feel like that hill is special, and that's where 2026 will be. So it's a huge motivation, but I'm also trying to take it year by year and making sure that mentally my heart's in it, and all of that. And obviously you have to be competitive too. It's you can't just want to be here, you have to earn it. So recognizing that all those things have to come into place. What was the second part of that?
And what about the Cochrans coming up?
Oh yeah. There's so we have, let's see, there's 7, 9, 11, I guess, is it 13? There's 13 third generation Cochrans right now, I think. I would say Charlie Brown, my cousin Roger's son, he's probably leading the charge in terms of the next, professional ski racer. There's definitely, I mean, his younger brother Mickey's an incredible skier too, and I call him my nephew. He's technically my cousin's son, Blake Cole, out in Park City. He's a little ripper too. So I'm sure that between the kids back here growing up at Cochran's, and then just we all still love skiing and all of that. I'm sure whether or not they make it to this level, I think they'll probably be pretty competitive, and I think hopefully if their dreams are to take it that far, hopefully they're able to.
Nancy Small writes, and we've covered this a little bit here, but how big a part does diet and nutrition play in your preparations?
At this level, where I'm at, recognizing like my physical limitations and I think diet, it does become one of those 1% aspects that if you're increasing that or improving that at that, your diet or what your body is taking in. By improving those little things, it really does make a big difference long term. So, I think I know that I'm never going to be able to squat 600 pounds or, run a marathon in under 3 hours. Like those types of things, I feel like I've, put in the work to know that I'm close to as good as I could be. Whereas I think because diet hasn't been necessarily such a huge thought up until the last couple of seasons, it's become more of a focus for sure. And for me, it's, not necessarily the micro, like where my food's being sourced from when I'm on the road or those types of things. It's more about, how much protein am I taking in, what my carbohydrates are, like how am I feeling myself throughout the day. And then also like the supplements, like, creatine, beta alanine, those types of things that we've been kind of aided on, trying to do everything that I can in that sense, just knowing that, the better I feel and the more physically fit I feel, I think that just brings confidence to the start. And, the less tired you can feel at the bottom of the course, I think the better off you are. So it's quite critical, I would say.
Okay. Here's a thoughtful question. How do you emotionally recover from a subpar performance?
I'm still learning how to best do that. In an ideal world, it's, trying to be like a goldfish and, just staying in the present, forgetting about the past. I definitely hang on at times and, hold a lot of emotion with my performances. I would say more to my detriment than my benefit with that regard. So, in those moments, it's hard not to be, like feel let down in yourself. And really the best thing that you can do is, just move on from it, take it as a learning opportunity, know why you didn't perform the way you wanted to perform, and going forward, do whatever you can to make yourself better. But it does sting at times. And, it is, I think that some of the best skiers in the world, are really, really good at being like, oh yeah, today wasn't a great day, but you know what, tomorrow I'm going to be able to come back and have a much better performance. I trust myself. I have that confidence in myself. So I'm going to go out and do that. And, it's that confidence and ability is really, I think, what separates a lot of people.
And aside from ski racing here, as we get close to wrapping it up, your family's very involved with the whole maple syrup industry. Tell us a little bit about it, because it's been going awfully well.
Yeah. So, 4 of my cousins back in 2010, they got together and, really it started, we had a forester come to our family land in Richmond, which kind of surrounds Cochran-Siegle area. And he was like, hey, you have a lot of maple trees. You probably make a, sugar bush if you wanted. And so 4 of my cousins, Roger Brown, Doug Brown, Jimmy Cochran, and Tim Kelly came together and they formed Slopeside Syrup, which is, from then for probably until like 2014, 2015 grew into the sugar bush that it is, which, the sugar house is on the other side of a brook right next to the Cochran-Siegle area. And they produce, maple syrup as true as you can be with Vermont. So, if you haven't tried it, I would highly recommend trying it. It's pretty delicious, but
Yes.
it's a fun, I think, our family's fortunate where skiing is such a huge part of what Vermont is, and to then also be able to kind of transition in a way and produce maple syrup. It's like, as we just have to start making some cheese, or I don't know what else would be, but yeah, it's nice.
Well, it's been a delight to have you, Ryan. I think we've covered enough topics to get a glimpse into you as a person. And I love what I see. The humbleness, the joy found in skiing and being outdoors and in winter, but in all seasons. You're really a complete athlete with great success. So It's such a joy, and I thank you for taking the time. You honor us by your presence here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter.
You bet. It's been wonderful. And we'll turn to Abby. Abby, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it.
Great. Well, thank you both so much, Ryan and Peter, for both your time and a wonderful conversation. That was really great. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it as well. You continue by continuing to tune in, you continue to give us a reason to bring you these events, and we truly enjoy creating this series. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on at the museum. It's officially ski season and we are busy. If you'll be at the Killington World Cup, you'll certainly hear Peter, but you can stop by and see us at our tent. Come say hi. We will have a small exhibit of old ski racing equipment and a ski raffle. The museum also reopens on the 24th with a new exhibit and fully stocked gift shop. So we hope you'll swing in and do some holiday shopping with us. And then on December 1st, we have our exhibit opening party. So you're all invited to join us between 5 and 8 p.m. to enjoy our new exhibit, Searching for Vermont's Lost Ski Areas. We currently have intel on 175 lost ski areas in Vermont, and consider this research that's already a 20-year endeavor an ongoing process. So please join us. And if you have stories and memories of your time at any of these areas or an area that's yet to be mapped, we welcome you to share with us. And this time of year is really crucial to our fundraising efforts. We hope you'll keep us in mind when you're making your year-end donations. If you believe in the value of the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum and enjoy our programming, please consider making a year-end donation, renewing your membership, becoming a member, or gifting a membership. There are so many ways to support us, and your generosity is truly what keeps us going. And thank you all so much again for tuning in. Have a wonderful night, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you all very soon. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.